Okay, so today we are diving deep into emotional intelligence.
EQ.
EQ, there you go.
Yeah.
You sent over some really interesting stuff on this. So
Right.
it seems like you're really trying to boost those self-awareness skills.
Yeah.
Get ready to unlock those secrets to, understanding your own emotions and
Yeah.
how to navigate relationships like a pro.
Yeah. And let me tell you, this isn't just another self-help buzzword you always hear about.
Right.
There's actually decades of research that back up this whole idea of EQ.
Wow.
And honestly, it has a huge impact on how we live and work.
Absolutely. And forget those vague theories, okay?
Yeah,
The source that you sent is all about actionable insights.
absolutely.
It breaks EQ down into 4 core components:
Okay.
self-awareness, self-management,
Right.
social awareness, and relationship management. It's like we've got a roadmap now
I like it.
to upgrade your emotional intelligence.
I like it a lot.
And we're going to unpack each of these step by step.
What I find really interesting is that the source emphasizes that each of these components, they're not just these isolated things.
Right.
They all work together.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just be aware of your emotions.
Yes.
You need to know how to manage them.
Right.
And then understand their impact on your interactions.
Yeah.
It's like, think of it this way. EQ is less about becoming some emotionless robot
Okay.
and more like training to be a martial artist.
Okay.
You're learning to harness that power
Oh,
your emotion.
I like that.
and wield them effectively.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of self-awareness, I love how the source goes beyond just labeling your emotions.
Right, yeah.
It's not enough to just say, oh, I'm stressed.
We've all been there, right?
We've all been there.
Yeah.
But this deep dive that we're about to do encourages you to ask yourself, why?
Yes.
Why are you stressed?
What's at the root?
Is it a fear of messing up?
Yeah.
Feeling unprepared? You have to pinpoint that root cause.
Pinpoint it exactly. It's
Mm.
like we're detectives.
Okay.
We're trying to uncover these hidden triggers, these patterns in our own emotional landscape.
Yeah.
That's where mindfulness comes in.
Mindful and
I was just about to say that.
mindful, that word gets thrown around a lot these days.
It does.
But it's more than just a trendy term.
Right.
It's a really powerful tool for self-awareness.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
You're hitting the pause button on your mind.
Okay.
Just allowing yourself to observe your thoughts and your feelings
Right.
without judgment.
Without judgment, just kind of watching them.
Yeah. And with practice, you'll start to notice
Okay.
these really subtle cues
Okay.
that your mind and body are sending you,
Yeah.
which helps you respond to situations with more intention and clarity.
So instead of just reacting on autopilot,
Yeah.
you're creating space for a more thoughtful response.
Exactly. That space between what triggers you and how you respond.
Oh.
That's where the magic of EQ really kicks in.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
This is where things get really interesting for me. There's this misconception that EQ is all about suppressing your emotions. We should just be these perfectly composed beings all the time.
Right.
But the source makes it crystal clear.
Okay.
EQ is about
Mhm.
managing and channeling your emotions effectively,
Yes.
not pretending they don't exist.
Yeah, we're not aiming for emotional flatlining.
Right,
We're
exactly.
talking about developing the skills to experience our emotions fully.
Okay.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
But also to harness them in a way that helps us,
Right.
not hinders us.
So it's less about denying those feelings
Right.
and more about choosing how you respond to them.
And this ties directly into the idea of resilience,
Okay.
which is huge, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
It's not just about keeping your cool in the moment,
Right.
but it's about how you bounce back from setbacks,
Oh.
how you adapt and even learn from those curveballs life throws at you.
Which I'm guessing leads us right into self-management. Okay.
Self-management is all about taking that self-awareness we talked about
Okay.
and using it to regulate your emotional responses.
Yeah, okay.
It's like having this toolkit
Oh,
full of techniques
I like it. Okay.
to navigate those really intense feelings.
So give us an example.
Sure.
What kind of techniques are we talking about?
Well, let's say you're feeling overwhelmed.
Okay.
The source talks about a technique called cognitive reframing,
Okay.
where you challenge those negative thought patterns
Okay.
and try to reframe the situation in a more positive light.
Okay, so you're changing your perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or there's emotional labeling,
Okay.
where you simply acknowledge and name your emotions
To yourself.
to yourself.
Got it.
Sometimes just putting a label on those feelings
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm feeling anxious right now,
Okay.
can actually help to take some of their power away.
Okay. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be really helpful in
Yeah.
those moments when you just feel like you're about to lose it.
Right. It's like you're taking back control of the situation
Right.
instead of letting your emotions run the show.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've explored the inner workings of like self-awareness
Right.
and management. But what happens when we turn outward
Okay.
and engage with others?
Yes.
That's where social awareness takes center stage, right?
100%.
Okay.
You nailed it. Social awareness is all about tapping into empathy, which the source highlights as the core of this component.
Okay, got it.
And we're not just talking about intellectually grasping someone else's viewpoint,
Right.
but actually stepping into their shoes, feeling what they're feeling.
That makes sense, but I have to admit,
Yeah,
it can be a lot harder than it sounds.
it is.
We all have our own biases,
Yeah.
our own experiences that shape how we see things.
Exactly. That's why empathy is a muscle you have to keep flexing.
Okay.
It's about challenging your assumptions,
Right.
truly listening to understand,
Okay.
not just to fire back a response.
Right.
It's like the source says you want to read between the lines of a conversation,
Okay.
almost like a detective uncovering hidden motives.
Wow.
That's the power of EQ in action.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
So it's less about waiting for your turn to talk
Right.
and more about really tuning into what the other person is saying
Yes.
and not saying.
You got it. And this ties directly into communication,
Okay.
which the source points out as a key aspect of social awareness.
Right.
When you understand the why
Yeah.
behind someone's words, their motivations, their fears,
Yeah.
communication suddenly becomes clearer.
Okay.
It's like you're both suddenly speaking the same language,
Oh,
even if you don't agree on everything.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
It's like building a bridge of understanding, right?
absolutely.
So fewer misunderstandings,
Right.
less conflict, and more meaningful conversations overall.
Precisely. Social awareness helps you recognize that everyone is coming from their own unique place,
Right.
and you approach interactions with that empathy and understanding in mind.
I like it. Okay.
And that brings us to the final piece of the EQ puzzle,
Okay.
relationship management.
This feels like where all those other EQ elements we've been discussing kind of come together.
Absolutely. It's like the grand finale.
Okay.
The combination of all that self-awareness, emotional management, and empathy,
Okay.
you're taking all those tools
Right. Yeah.
and using them to build stronger, healthier relationships.
So it's not just about avoiding conflict,
No,
because let's be real, disagreements are part of life.
They are.
It's about knowing how to navigate those bumps in the road constructively,
Yeah.
right?
Relationship management is all about effective communication,
Okay.
setting healthy boundaries, respecting differences, and finding that sweet spot, that common ground.
Yeah.
Remember that example from the source about disagreeing with a friend?
Yeah, it really stuck with me.
Right. It's not about dodging disagreements altogether.
Right.
Because that's impossible.
Yeah.
It's about approaching those conversations with EQ
Okay.
so you don't damage the relationship.
That's where emotional intelligence really shines.
Yes.
You're equipped to handle those tough conversations
Right.
without your emotions hijacking the whole situation.
Exactly. You can listen to their perspective,
Right.
communicate your own needs calmly and respectfully,
Okay.
and work towards a resolution together like a team.
It's like you're building this incredible toolkit
It is.
for stronger, more fulfilling connections with
Yeah.
everyone around you.
I love it.
But how do we actually make this happen?
Right.
It's great to have all this theory swirling around,
Right.
but what about the practical side of things?
You read my mind. The source wouldn't leave us hanging
Okay, good.
without some actionable steps to boost our EQ.
Okay, what do we got?
It recommends 5 key practices:
Okay.
mindfulness, active listening, reflecting on your emotions daily,
Okay.
asking for feedback, and managing stress.
Okay, let's break those down.
Okay,
We've touched on mindfulness already,
we have.
but it sounds like the source really sees this as like
Foundational
foundational, yeah,
to building EQ.
to building EQ.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is all about paying attention to the present moment.
Okay.
Without that inner critic judging everything. That means noticing your thoughts, your feelings,
Okay.
and even those subtle bodily sensations
Sure.
without getting swept away by them.
So instead of reacting automatically,
Yes,
you're hitting that pause button,
you got it.
creating space for a more mindful response.
Exactly. And in that space, that pause,
Yeah.
that's where EQ flourishes.
I like that. Okay. I'm starting to get the hang of this.
Okay.
Now, what about active listening?
Active listening is about being totally present and engaged in a conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about quieting that inner monologue
Right.
and truly focusing on what the other person is saying.
Okay.
Their words, their tone, their body language, all of it.
So less waiting for my turn to talk
Right.
and more genuinely trying to understand your experience.
Exactly. You're not just hearing their words, you're absorbing their message.
Oh, wow.
And to do that, you ask clarifying questions.
Okay.
You reflect back what you hear to make sure you understand.
Okay.
And you validate their feelings, even if you don't agree with them.
I'll admit I could use some practice on that. It's
Yeah.
easy to slip into that habit of like
It is.
planning your response while the other person is still talking.
Right.
But I can see how powerful it would be to really be present and engaged in a conversation.
It is.
Truly listening to understand.
It takes practice, but the rewards are immense.
Okay.
People will not only appreciate being truly heard,
Right.
but you'll also gain a much deeper understanding of their thoughts, feelings, and motivations,
Right.
which in turn strengthens your relationships.
It's a win-win.
Exactly.
So we've covered mindfulness and active listening. What's next?
Well, the source suggests taking some time each day for reflection.
Okay.
It might seem small, but those few minutes of reflection can be really powerful.
That's interesting. What kind of reflection are we talking about here? So taking a few minutes each day to really check in with ourselves emotionally.
Yeah, it's like taking your emotional temperature,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay.
Ask yourself, what emotions did I experience today?
Okay.
What triggered those emotions? How did I respond?
Right.
Were those reactions helpful or maybe not so helpful?
So it's like keeping an emotional journal in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything formal.
Okay.
Just taking a few minutes to jot down your thoughts,
Right.
or even just mentally review your day, can offer incredible insights.
Oh.
You start noticing patterns in your emotional reactions,
Yeah.
which helps you make more conscious choices
Okay.
about how you want to respond in the future.
That's so true. Sometimes I don't even realize
Right.
how often certain things trigger me until I actually stop and pay attention.
Yeah.
It's like those blind spots we all have. Suddenly they're illuminated and you're like, oh, wow, there's a pattern here.
Right. And once you're aware of those patterns,
Yeah.
you can start developing healthier coping mechanisms.
Okay.
And this leads us perfectly into the next tip, asking for feedback.
Okay.
Now, this one might seem a little intimidating at first,
Right.
but it can be so eye-opening.
You're talking about like asking those around us
Yeah.
for honest feedback
Yeah.
on how our emotions might be impacting them.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror
Okay.
to those blind spots we were just talking about.
Right.
Sometimes we're so caught up in our own heads
Right.
that we miss how our words or actions are landing on others.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in the context of relationships. Having that outside perspective can be so valuable.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be this big formal feedback session.
Okay.
It could be as simple as asking a trusted friend or colleague,
Right.
hey, I'm trying to be more aware of how my emotions might be impacting others.
Yeah.
Would you be open to giving me some honest feedback on how I'm doing?
Such a simple yet powerful question.
Right.
Okay. Last but definitely not least, the source talks about learning to manage stress.
Oh, yeah.
And let's be real, stress is practically unavoidable these days.
Tell me about it. And managing stress is crucial for boosting EQ.
Okay.
Because when we're stressed out,
Yeah.
our emotions tend to go haywire,
Right.
and our ability to think clearly just plummets.
Like our brains get hijacked.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why having healthy ways to manage stress is essential for emotional regulation,
Yeah.
whether it's exercise, meditation,
Right.
spending time in nature, or jamming out to your favorite tunes.
Totally.
Finding what works for you is key.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Nope.
What helps one person de-stress might not work for another.
Exactly.
It's all about finding what helps you hit that reset button
Yes.
and make it a regular part of your routine.
Couldn't agree more. You're building up those resilience muscles we talked about,
Yeah.
making you better equipped to bounce back from challenges faster and easier.
Wow, this has been such an insightful deep dive.
It have.
I feel like I have not only gained a clearer understanding of EQ,
Yeah.
but also like a toolkit
Yes.
of practical strategies to start applying it to my own life.
Me too. It's been great unpacking all this.
Yeah.
And remember, this isn't about becoming some emotional expert overnight.
Right.
It's a journey,
Okay.
a continual process of learning and growth.
Exactly. So for you listening, here's a little something to ponder.
Yeah.
What's one small step you can take today
Okay.
to flex those EQ muscles?
I love it.
Maybe it's practicing mindfulness for a few minutes, Truly listening to a friend or loved one, or even just scheduling some me time to unwind, every little bit counts until next time. Keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.